Get ready for more valuable financial insights from Northern California's premier retirement income planners, Dan Ahmad and Jim Files, owners of Peak Financial Freedom Group. For more information, go to peakfin.com. And now, here's Dan and Jim.
This is Dan Ahmad and Jim Files. This is the Peak Financial Freedom Hour, and we're going to cover a tremendous amount of data to help you understand how to make the best decisions for your secure retirement. And we'd like to welcome all the people that listen to us every week, and we're so grateful that you're here and letting us share our wisdom so that you can make the best decisions for you and your family. And want to make sure if you've listened, we've had people that listen for 2, 3, 4 years, and then they finally call in and say, hey, I would like to meet with you guys because I do agree. I think I need to have some free information, and I'd really like to develop a plan in writing, especially because that's free and we don't put any pressure on people to create this plan. We might meet with you 4 or 5 times and we'll create a plan. You get to take it home. You're not even our client. You get to take your plan home and you have something in your hand that you've never had in your life before. And that is a customized, comprehensive, written income plan. And then you get to review it. And then you get to decide, do you want to implement it? If you want to take us up on that offer, just dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money. That's pound 250 and say the keyword money. You also can listen to our radio shows on our website. They're recorded. We have a podcast as well on different stations. You can go to our YouTube channel, look at tremendous number of videos that are out there as far as educating you. And then as you start to become educated and say, yeah, I think I want to implement some of these things, again, just give us a call on your cell phone, pound 250, say the keyword money. We are very, very happy and just overjoyed that we get to help people change their futures. And we, on a daily basis, Jim, you and I always talk about it, how much we literally can change people's lives. And it's amazing to see the transformation of someone coming in worrying about their money so much where they can't sleep, and then transitioning over into having a plan that they can rely on, that they can trust in writing, that they can understand, and more importantly, so both spouses can understand. Because when people come in, maybe start this show off with a quote, and then after the quote, why don't you start talking about the benefit of almost the need that both spouses have to understand their money, not just the one taking care of the money.
You know, this is a quote by Fred Roberts. He's a famous motivational speaker, and he says, often when you think you're at the end of something, you're at the beginning of something else. And that really kind of ties into people that we work with, Dan, because people come to us because they are either going to retire and they're worried about how do they get through retirement with their assets and income, or people are in retirement and they're worried about how they're positioned and will they ever run out of money. And you're transitioning right at that point. And our job is to show you how to transition, to show you how to go from where you've been in asset accumulation mode, where you've been taking risk, you haven't been using your assets maybe for income, and you've been trying to grow those assets, and you're willing to ride the market out. Now, all of a sudden, if you're worried about retirement, you're going to have to do that transition, right? You're at the beginning of something else whereby you're going to have to figure out, how do I preserve those assets that took me 40 years to save? And how do I get income off those assets that will never be depleted for as long as I live? So that's a great quote for what we do here, Dan, because that's exactly our focus here, is to make sure that we are meeting with not just the husband, if he's making the financial decisions, or the wife making the financial decisions, but both husband and wife, so that we can identify every objective you both have in writing, so that we can put together a comprehensive plan to answer those objectives and to reduce your stress, and to give you something in writing that will get you through retirement, and knowing that you are contractually guaranteed, in many cases based on financial instruments we can use, that you'll never run out of income, Dan.
Well, the key, what you just talked about to me, was the joining of the minds of the husband and the wife. It doesn't matter who's taking care of the money. Usually one takes care of the assets, one takes care of the budget. One is worried about growth and long-term. The other is worrying about what in the heck is happening on a monthly basis. It just goes that way. I'd say when people come in, I'm going to estimate 85 to 90% of couples are not on the same page when it comes to their money when we start the process, which there's no way that's good for their life or their marriage, their relationship, or their finances. When we go through the process, they both now have to agree on the same platform, on the same strategies, on the same goals and recommendations moving forward. Now, when they both agree to it, it becomes their plan, and it brings them both together on the same playing field. And we find that makes the marriage better, makes the finances so much better, and actually allows them to live a significantly more successful and happier retirement. So we're really glad for that. How about this? Let's have people understand how they can grade their financial plan if they're doing it themselves, and or their financial plan if they have an advisor. So when you look at making the best decisions, you want to avoid catastrophic mistakes. That's what everyone wants. I think you talk about that a lot. People want to avoid making financial mistakes, and it doesn't matter how much they have saved, $1 million, 5 million, 10 million. They all worry about making mistakes, and they all worry they're going to make a mistake that will make them run out of money before they pass away. So there's 10 questions. And with these 10 questions, you can give yourself 10 points each on these questions. And it's a way to grade you if you're doing your plan yourself or your advisor. So how about number one? How much risk do you really want to take? Meaning what percentage or dollar amount you're really willing to lose in a big stock market drop now that you're retired or ready to retire. And Jim, talk about why that's important, not just to know that answer, but to have it in writing.
Well, first of all, you should have it in writing, and you should know the answer before you invest one penny in the markets, particularly if you're getting close to retirement. Now, not that you don't have money invested, because you do. You've been investing for 35 or 40 years. But now, all of a sudden, if you're going to get ready to go into retirement and you need those assets for income, or you're in retirement and you're counting on those assets for income, you better understand what risk really means. You better understand in dollars and cents how much you could lose based on how you're positioned. Because when that happens, and it will happen, it happens often in the stock market, and stock markets can go down for long, long periods of time. Yes, of late, we haven't seen that. We've seen rebounds when the market has gone down, but that is not normal. In Japan, for example, the market dropped for 30 years and never really recovered, and that can happen here in the U.S. So you need to understand what level of risk you're willing to take and how much money you're willing to lose, and then put a plan working backwards to accomplish those goals, Dan.
Well, if you have that in writing, give yourself 10 points. The next question is, how much risk do you have in your current portfolio, meaning how much you could lose? So first we want to find out, question number one, how much do you really want to lose, and have that in writing? You probably don't have that in writing, so you can't give yourself 10 points. If you do, 10 points. The second is, how much could your current portfolio lose? And if you have that in writing, you get to give yourself 10 points. You probably don't have that. We've never seen one client with that we've done analysis for. So you probably have to give yourself another 0. So there's a high probability you're 0 for 2. How about the third one? How many clients come in and have in writing the total fees they're paying, including the fees they see and the fees they don't see?
1 out of 100, maybe. I'm probably being
There's none out of 100.
Yeah, maybe 1 out of 1,000.
The total fees they're paying.
Oh, total fees, none. 0 total fees. I thought you meant advisor fee, but total fees, no, 0.
So that would then be 0 for 3 for most people. How about this one, number 4? How much income can you safely take out of your assets without running out of money? Do you have that in writing? And do you know how much that is? And you know that it's going to be guaranteed to last for as long as you live. And most people will say no. How about number 5? We'll go through this as well. How long will your assets last if you're using them for income? Do you have that in writing? And how many people have that in writing?
None.
They just don't have it. None. And those are just the top 5 that we have to worry about. So you're probably 0 for 5. And if you're 0 for 5, it means you need a plan, and you better create that as soon as possible. How about number 6? If you take out as much income as you'd really like, how much income taxes will you pay? Don't people freak out about the taxes? Yep. Completely, right? So probably 0. How about this one? How much income taxes will be paid if you defer taking IRA distributions until you're forced to at 73? So is it better to defer?
And most people would fail that too.
Yep. How about if you use your assets for income for as long as you live, how much can you reasonably expect to leave to your beneficiaries? How many people even know that?
Very few, if any.
So that's another 10 points probably lost. How about number 9? Are you and your spouse very confident everything's going to work out as planned with your money and you don't have to worry about anything?
0.
And how about number 10? Do you have a full written retirement income plan that shows how much income you can take out during retirement, how much risk you're taking, how much you're going to be paying in fees, and you're really paying, and then how much your beneficiary gets, the advantages, the disadvantages, and all the details in writing? No one has that. So most people would have literally flunked this with a 0%, which means you're not in a position for success during retirement. You're back with Dan and Jim and the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. And today we are talking about grading your plan. That was our first segment. And Jim, we didn't really get to do a summary, but we went over 10 questions ranging from how much risk do you really want to take versus how much risk you're really taking, fees, how much are you really paying, how much can you take out of your income, all these things, and really culminated on, are you confident and are you not worrying about your money? and you have a full plan. All those things are part of how we grade.
Most people flunk that test. I would bet everybody listening here would have got at the best maybe a D, maybe.
And if that happens, what's their chance of success at retirement?
It goes down significantly, right? It's reduced. And it's so easy to solve that problem, and most people just don't do it. All you have to do is pick up your cell phone, dial pound 250 on it, and say the keyword money, and you can set up a free consultation with us, and we'll put all those 10 questions in writing specific to your situation, customize, give you a full plan, no obligation. You get to take it home free, whether you do business with us or not, and we will change your life if you do that. But most people, Dan, they say, well, I'll get to it, but they procrastinate, right?
Yeah. Or they really, in their hearts and their guts, they think they're okay because they've been told over and over and over again, either by themselves, by their advisor, by the website, by their 401k provider, by their friends. Oh, don't worry, everything will work out. You don't have to worry about big losses. Your income is going to be there for as long as you need it, and everything will work out. And you'll get these huge gains. And if you're told that 1,000 times, it's like in anything in life, you start believing it, even if it's not even close to being the truth.
That is 100% perfectly accurate. And there's all kinds of studies on that. If you're told something, even if it's not true, and you've been told it continuously for years, you will believe it as if it is it's true. And people don't have this in writing. They don't have it, but they think they are okay. It's not true.
Well, think about it right now. It's pretty simple. Just look at if you had $2 million of assets and you said, okay, I want to take income off of this and I have it diversified and I've been told I'm not that risky. Okay, that means you should be using about a 3% distribution rate on your diversified portfolio, which means you can take out $60,000 and you have a 95% chance probability wise that it won't run out. Yeah. But you still have a 5% chance, even in that case, in a worst case scenario, the money would run out. So to me, that's a little scary. On the other side, and that's the truth. On the other side, then you have assets that are out there available where we could probably create something in the neighborhood of double $120,000 a year of guaranteed income that will never run out for as long as the people live. So if they have a black and white choice and they can free their minds, and if you're listening, you can say, okay, do I want 60,000 that might last forever, or do I want 120,000 that's guaranteed contract to last forever? And in retirement planning, it's all about income. It's not about growth. It's all about income that will allow you to live the lifestyle.
Yeah, the problem is that people are ignorant. They're not dumb. They're ignorant. And ignorant means that you just haven't been taught this, right? It doesn't mean you're not smart.
They're not ignorant. They're just ignorant of the facts.
Ignorant of the facts, right? And it's nothing bad with that. It just means you haven't been educated on these alternatives that we're talking about, which means that once you are educated, in 95% of the cases or more, people see the light and they say, wow, I can really do that with my finances, which not only gets you the income you need in retirement, but it lowers your stress substantially.
I know, across the board. And that's the goal. As we talked about earlier, it's how do we help someone feel very confident everything's going to work out so they can reduce how much they're worried about retirement. And I always like to bring people back to when they started saving. Let's say they started saving, they're a good saver in the 20s, or maybe they started saving in the 30s. Well, when you're that age, the whole goal was to save up a pile of money so you could retire without worrying about your money. And every single client that comes into our office as a first meeting, they come in and they are worrying more about their money now than they ever have because they're either retired or getting ready to retire. And you have to think about it. It's just realistic. You have the most money ever the day you retire in most cases because you've saved, and you had some growth. So of course, at that point, you're going to worry about having more money than less money. You're worried about big losses because the biggest thing you have to worry about, and we haven't really talked about it, is you don't have time on your side anymore. And every person knows that once they retire. How many people really truly think in their hearts that they have time to ride out a large stock market loss?
If they really think about it, they know they don't have time. They know the recovery of a loss is devastating both emotionally and financially. And it's really difficult as you get close to retirement to actually ride the market down. People make financial mistakes. Now, you could do it when you're 30 or 40, maybe even 50, because you're still working and you had less money and your dollar cost average into your 401k plan. But all of a sudden, you're getting ready to retire, and those assets have to be converted into a paycheck for the rest of your life. And the market begins to go down. It's a different story, Dan.
Well, think about this just for sequence of returns, meaning when your returns happen, or what we're talking about, what you're talking about right now. I just had a client I talked to yesterday, and they've done well saving, and they're young. I think like 59 and 56. They have about $2 million saved. So they've done well to save that much money at that young age. And then he manages it himself. He's done a good job in the growth mode, but he's like, I think I really need to start focusing on the planning side and the income side. So we talked about, what's happened. He said, well, in 2022, our portfolio went down, and then it's taken until now, just recently, for the portfolio to get back up to even the way that it's been invested. He's had stocks and bonds. He's diversified the way he's been taught to, doing it himself. But he's had this time period, and they retired. And in this case, they retired early. In this case, they couldn't use any of their portfolio in 2022, 2023, or even 2024 because it was down and hadn't recovered, and they were so afraid to use their assets. So that's the first 3 years that they planned to have a really good retirement, right, at young ages and travel. And now, what kind of retirement are they living if they can't use their $2 million of assets for income?
They're worried. They're stressed. They're concerned. Will my money last? Will I run out of money? What if we have another stock market crash? How much can I lose? How much will I lose?
Oh, and then what you just said, that's what he's worried about now. He's like, okay, we finally recovered. What if this happens again?
Well, it will happen again. Go back to 2001 and 2. The market dropped 53%, right? And then it took until 2007 to recover. You recovered for 7.5 months, and the market dropped then 57%. And it took until 2013 to recover. So has it happened? Of course it's happened. And will it happen again? Of course it will happen, right? And will people be off guard? Of course they will.
Well, look at what's driving the market now, and that's technology stocks. Well, if you go back to the year 2000 technology bubble, the bust, when the NASDAQ crashed, went down, 75% approximately, it crashed. Everyone thinks it's going to rebound really quickly. It took until 2019 basically to recover fully. Right. So that case then, it took to 2017. We had 17 years during that time period for it to recover. You can't use your money during the time period. And what's driving the market now? Technology. So you can't put yourself in a position, if you're retired or getting ready to retire, that you're going to have a 10, 12, 15, even 17-year recovery gain time period, because you won't make it.
And we're not saying don't invest in the market. We have money invested for our clients in the market. Now, we're using different strategies, but it's still at risk, right? But what we are telling you is understand what you're trying to accomplish in retirement, understand where your income is going to come from, and make sure that you have a portfolio set up where you have enough guaranteed income to maintain your lifestyle and your budget. And then the rest of the money that you invest in the market, you can take risk with that, Dan.
You're back with Dan and Jim, the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. And today we're talking about how can you make the best decisions about retirement so that you have a secure future. And we talked about multiple subjects. Right now, we're going to cover, Jim, what we call, this would be advice to avoid and or advisors to avoid, because those are usually the people giving advice. It could be internet source. It could be 401k. It could be any of these. But let's look at what we call red flags that you have to look out for when you're designing your plan, working with your current advisor, or looking for a new advisor. The first one is, we call it a one-legged stool. And that means the advisor only works with the stock market, for example, or the advisor only works with annuities, or the advisor says, let's put it all in the bank, or the advisor doesn't like banks. Maybe they only sell alternative investments. Maybe they hate real estate, so they kind of just knock it off the side, saying, oh, you don't need the rentals, sell them all. But that's what we call the one-legged stool, when they aren't providing comprehensive, holistic advice on using multiple different asset strategies and income streams to produce a good income.
And if you think about that, if you take cash, you take stocks and bonds, and you take annuities, certain types of annuities, and you build a portfolio based on your requirement set, how much income you're going to need, you want that guaranteed or not guaranteed, then you put enough money in that bucket, which in this example would be, in our recommendation, to consider a fixed index annuity with an income rider. Then you say, okay, I want money in the market. Okay, we decide how much risk you're willing to take, and we put money in the market. We're using strategies to help reduce risk. It doesn't get rid of risk, but it helps reduce risk. Now you have growth opportunity. And then you say, what about the bank? And yes, we're going to promote putting money in the bank, safe and secure, it's liquid, you can get at it. And if you had all those three buckets, they all behave differently. And it's behavior that we're looking at in retirement. How do these assets behave? and where is my income coming from, and where is my growth coming from, and where is my safety coming from. If you do that correctly, you got a
And,
great
well,
plan.
and you might have real estate that everyone else tells you to sell. If you have paid off real estate at retirement that's generating a high level of income, that's a great asset to own as long as you can handle the management duties or you pass those off to a management company. So real estate can be a great thing. We also find people as they get older start selling real estate and they want to use the proceeds to create as much, if not more, income coming off of the proceeds after taxes. And we're able to help people do that. And then we see other people saying, you know what, my whole goal now is to make sure for the next 10 years, I have more income than I need so we can do all the traveling, etc. So you just want to make sure you avoid that one-legged stool process or advisor. How about this next one? Yeehaw, the rodeo cowboy. That's an advisor that always will tell you, hang in there, ride the course, basically just ride it out. And we don't believe that. That'd be like saying, okay, you want to get on a bull because that's what it's like. And then you have to stay on it for 8 seconds to make sure you guarantee you're successful. Very few of the cowboys stay on it for 8 seconds. So we never want you to, in retirement, feel that you should always ride it out, hang in there, and stay the course because we don't have time on our side any longer. How about this one? I know you've talked about this before. We call this one Picasso. You know how when an advisor meets with a client and then they talk about their portfolio, they put it on the screen or they print it out and it's this beautiful pie chart and that's all they talk about. Discuss what a beautiful pie chart really means.
What it means is that you have this colorful pie chart, and it's representing different assets that you own within that pie chart. There's lots of mutual funds, maybe exchange traded funds, maybe stocks, and maybe even bonds. But what they don't tell you is there's a correlation with all of that, right? Because if you have a bunch of mutual funds, maybe 10 or 12 or 15, I had one that had 485 funds. I showed you 2 weeks ago. It was crazy. It's nuts. It makes no sense whatsoever. And a lot of that falls into the same group. You own the same stuff over and over and over and over, whether it's a Vanguard fund, whether it's a Fidelity fund, and it's a growth stock fund. It's the same stocks in the majority of cases.
Well, based on what you just talked about, if you go back just to the year 2022 and you had a 60% stock fund, 40% bond portfolio, you thought you were safer than heck because you're diversified. Well, the problem in 2022 is the stocks and the bonds all went down together. So I think what was the Vanguard balance fund down like 20 something percent during that year?
22.45%.
22.45% in a balanced portfolio that no one ever thought they'd lose that much. Well, that was that beautiful pie chart. How about this? You want to avoid an advisor who acts like your father. And a lot of times this might be to the female clients, but I've seen it to the male clients also. And he basically feels like he gets to tell you what you do, what you're supposed to do. You have to do it like you're the kid. And it should never be that way. An advisor needs to be your educator and your mentor, needs to lay out everything that's going to be understandable to you in a written plan so that you can then feel confident you're making the right decisions with your money. You do not let someone just run the show. You have to participate in it. How about this one? Why don't you cover this one? When the advisor basically focuses not on the money, not on the planning, and says you don't need a plan because of developing this close personal relationship, like the advisor is your best friend.
Well, your advisor should be your friend, but you're not paying your advisor to be your friend. You're paying your advisor for his skill set, for his knowledge base, for his understanding of your objectives so that you can have a plan put together to mitigate your risk, maximize your income, and making sure you're getting prudent information and advice from that advisor. So your advisor needs to be friendly to you, and they can be your friend, but that's not what you're paying them for.
Well, let me give you a quick example about what you just talked about. And that is, client came in, it's a lady. She had done well saving. She's about 65. She had $3 million of assets and she'd been working with an advisor for 20 years. And she said multiple times, I just love my advisor. They're nice. They're great. We talk, he's my friend, etc. But she was sitting in front of us because she's still worrying about her money significantly. So we did the analysis and we found out if we go through another 2008 financial crisis, she's going to lose about 50% of her assets, which means she's going to lose about $1.5 million, which she was shocked because she doesn't want to take more than 5% risk. She thought she was paying 1% fees. She was paying about 2.2% in fees, and she was shocked by that. And her advisor told her on the $3 million, she better not take out any more than $50,000 a year of income to make sure the money's going to last. So all these things were with her current portfolio. We redid the portfolio and we were able to show her that she can have a lot better plan. The issue was her friendship with her advisor made it very difficult for her to even see that. So stay with us for the next section. We'll go into that even deeper. You're back with Dan and Jim, the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. And we ended last segment talking about a client that I'd met with, and she had had an advisor for 20 years. She's 65 years old. She had a 50% risk factor, meaning if we go through another financial crisis, she better be prepared to lose 1.5 million, which she's not. She was paying 2.2% in fees versus the 1% she was told. And she was only told she could take out $50,000 of income off of her $3 million. We created a plan that reduced the risk down to 5%, which means now we have $150,000 risk versus 1.5 million. The fees ended up being about 1.25% average fee instead of 2.2, almost reduced her fees by 1%. And we were able to create an income plan that's going to give her $150,000 a year of income versus the 50,000. And the plan was so much better than anything else her current advisor done, but she was so hung up that this guy was her friend. It made her tough. It made it tough for her to make the decision to reduce her risk from 1.5 million to 150,000, to reduce her fees from 2.2 to 1.25, and to increase her income from 50,000 to 150,000. How lame is that?
Well, it happens, right? Because they develop this friendship and they think that's more important than making the right decision about their future, which is the exact opposite. You need to make the right decision about your future. You all have other friends, right? Your advisor is there for his skill set, for him to deliver to you what you can possibly get out of your portfolio in the form of income and growth, security, and less stress.
And they think they have a relationship with the advisor. The advisor thinks he has a business relationship or she has a business relationship with the client. And basically, the way to figure out that they're not your friend, imagine if you stopped using them as your advisor, would you still go out to dinner and hang out and be friends that way? And the answer is no, you wouldn't be.
No, they would not be your friend. I can promise you that.
How about this one? We see this a lot. The advisors really don't listen to the clients as far as what the client wants. The client says they want to take less risk. The advisor might say, oh, don't worry, you don't have that much risk. Hanging in there, everything's fine. We need to invest this aggressively to get you good rates so you can succeed at retirement. Or if the client says, I really need to take more income out, and then the advisor says, well, you're going to have too many capital gains and you're going to have too much tax and your money might run out. Or if the client says, you know what, I really want to plan in writing that's going to show me everything that's happening with my money so I can feel confident and so that my spouse and I can both understand this, and they don't listen. So if an advisor isn't listening, there's no way they can provide a plan that's going to meet your goals. And if they're not listening, you better not be working with them, I think.
Well, right now, if you have an advisor and you don't have a plan in place, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not listening in that example. It just means they don't do that. They don't develop plans, right? So they're going to divert you into a different area so that you won't expect a plan. Because if you don't know what a plan is and your advisor doesn't offer a plan, you don't know what you're missing. You have no idea, right?
Well, that kind of fits in, and maybe cover this. That kind of fits in with the next advisor that says, trust me, you don't need a written plan. Nothing needs to be in writing.
Well, that's not true, right? Because you are at an age where those assets are the most important thing in your life going forward, other than your health, because you need to have those assets to produce you income and not lose those assets in a major market crash so that you can have a successful retirement. And unless you can get that in writing, an income plan, a tax plan, a legacy plan, how much income you need after tax every month and every year to meet your budget. What about inflation? What about long-term care costs? How I'm going to manage that? What about my beneficiaries? After I use my assets for income, can I leave money to the kids and the grandkids? You better have that in writing, detailed, very specific to your objectives so that you can see it, have your advisor sign off on it, have you sign off on it, so that you have the highest probability of success in retirement.
Well, how about this one? Another advisor to avoid is someone who says, you don't need money in the bank. Advisors tell consumers they don't need money in the bank because advisors do not get paid to tell you to put money in the bank. In our plans, one of our three main buckets is having liquid money in the bank. And it's not for just emergency purposes. It's to make it feel a lot more comfortable to spend some of the money, because we know spending money in the bank is a lot easier and more comfortable than spending money in the stock market that's on a volatile basis, because either you're worried you're going to miss out on gains, or you're worried you're going to suffer a big loss, or you sell it at a loss. So we want to make sure that we establish enough money liquid in the bank as part of a plan. Another one advisor to avoid, we feel, is if they always just state point blank that you should always, no matter what, defer your IRA distributions until you're 73 when you're forced to take income distributions out of your IRA. Well, that will save your money. So let's say you're 65 right now, and they say you can wait 8 years and take your money out at 73, and you won't pay any taxes on the IRA distributions from 65 to 72. The problem is at 73, you'll probably have more money in your account at that point, and you're going to be forced to take a higher level of income from 73 on for the rest of your life, maybe 20 years, because you deferred for those few 7 years. So is it better to save taxes for 7 years or basically pay more taxes for 20 years? The other thing that's going to happen is when you're younger, you can use your money a lot better when you're young versus when you're older. And if you pass away with an IRA, your beneficiaries are forced to take it out over 10 years or shorter. So how does that work out to their benefit?
Well, another example of what planning does, right? That's just one element out of hundreds that we're going to consider in the planning process, is that when do you start drawing down on your 401ks and your IRA money? Do you wait?
And
or
how
do you
much
do it
tax
now?
are you going to pay?
Exactly. So these are just different elements outside of investing your money, right? It's about income. It's about taxes. It's about things that you need to understand, not just that your money's in the market and you hope you can pull out enough money in order to survive during retirement.
For more information about Peak Financial Freedom Group or to schedule a consultation, just go to our website, peakfin.com. That's peakfin.com. And thanks for watching.